Chosen one. God has left you a message. Not a feeling you cannot name. Not a coincidence you could explain. If someone pushed hard enough, a message deliberate, specific, and carved out of the silence of this exact season for one exact reason. Because you are ready to receive it now. Even if ready is the last word you would use to describe yourself today. No, most people will never get this message. It's not that they were forgotten, but that they never stopped to see that something was in their way. The message waited and waited, but you stopped them. They kept moving, making noise in the quiet places and mistaking movement for meaning. Since you're here now, it means that the silence finally got your attention. Before your mind could try to keep you from taking it, something inside you knew how heavy it was. God left you one last message, chosen one. Before this window closes, I'm going to read it to you. Not because I want to, but because it was put on my heart for this person right now. The next thing that happens will alter how you sleep tonight. It will change how you get up in the morning. It will answer the question you were too shy to ask out loud. Stay put. Now the message starts. Before we go any further, I want to name a texture of the season. You've been living. I don't want to name it because that will fully explain it, but because being named is the first thing that breaks the isolation of a hard season. When the invisible becomes visible, you realize that what you've been carrying alone has a shape and a language. And that shape and language are known. This season feels like waiting without a clear reason to wait. Like being in a hallway between two rooms and not being able to go back to the room you came from or go into the room ahead. The door is there. You can feel it. On days when you felt stronger, you reached for it, but it didn't open the way you thought it would. Being in the hallway for a longer time has made you wonder if you are even in the right hallway. This doubt has begun to creep into your faith. As for the sound, the silence in that hallway has been the loudest thing you've heard in a long time. You have prayed during this time. You have been faithful in the little things that no one saw that cost something and that were never talked about in public. At times when it would have been easier to give up, you stuck to your morals. The shift you were waiting for still hasn't come in the form you planned. On the worst days, it's been hard to make sense of the difference between what you were promised and how your life is now. That gap is not proof that God has left you, chosen one. That gap is the clearest sign I know of someone who was picked for something bigger than what has come into their life. Yet most of the time when it seems like God is pulling away, He is actually leaning in. When it feels like the connection is broken, it's usually just the signal moving to a higher frequency that carries something bigger. You have to be still, quiet, and fully present for it to land. You were there when it got quiet. And now the message that was waiting for that quiet is here. There are specific signs that a chosen one is getting close to the time of receiving. These are not general spiritual signs. These are the signs of a soul that has been preparing for a certain type of receiving. I want to go over them with you because some of the things you've been calling confusion, anxiety, or spiritual dryness have actually been something else. The first sign is being emotionally sensitive when you're not asked to be. Some things are moving you now that they wouldn't have moved you before. Something stops you in the middle of what you were doing. You get a chill from a sentence in a book. You feel someone else's pain as if it were your own when they are sad. This heightened sensitivity is not a problem with the nervous system. It means that the channels in your spirit are getting bigger to get ready for what's coming. As a vessel is stretched out before it is filled, so are you. This is because what is being prepared needs a bigger vessel than the one you were last season. The second sign is moving away from a place that used to feel like home. People who used to be fun to be with are now a drain. Places that used to be cozy now feel like they were built for a different frequency. You're still not cold. You can now make good decisions. There is a part of you that has been separating what belongs to the new version of you from what only belonged to the old version. So sorting is not the same as rejecting. That sorting is called alignment. The third sign is patterns that keep happening at impossible intervals. The same Bible verse showed up in 3 different places in the same afternoon. A certain set of numbers that show up on a clock, a receipt, and a street sign all at the same time. A phrase said by a stranger that shows up in the same week from a completely different source word for word because they don't know what they are. Most people just think these are coincidences. But a chosen one in the last stages of preparation starts to notice that dismissal takes more work than acknowledgement. This is because the pattern is too clear, too frequent, and too well timed for it to be caused by chance. These are signals for calibration. Your spirit is connecting with something that is just beyond what you can see. Clears throat, and the patterns that keep showing up are where what is invisible meets. What is becoming visible? The fourth sign is being creatively restless without a clear goal. You know you need to build something, but the shape hasn't shown up yet. When you reach for something, your hands don't find anything solid. This isn't a lack of direction. It feels like a seed pushing up through the soil before it knows there is light above it. The need for speed is real. This place is a real one. Just because you haven't broken through the surface yet doesn't mean you can see the form yet. The fifth sign, chosen one, is the easiest to understand and the most important. This is where you stopped in a world that was made to keep you moving, scrolling and consuming and comparing from morning to night. You stopped. You felt like this is the time when I really need to pay attention. Choosing to stop at this particular time is the last sign that everything is ready and the message is ready to go. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site. You are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give and it will be given to you, is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose, join the conversation, and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today. Join our community and see what God brings back into your life. This is the first truth that the message tells us. There was never silence. I want to stick with that because it's what everything else will be built on. When the connection feels broken. When prayers feel like they're not getting anywhere. And when answers take longer than your faith was meant to hold them, your first instinct is to think that the relationship has changed. That you have been sending messages to a place that has stopped getting them. Most of the time the conclusion is where a chosen one goes wrong during a season of preparation. Just think about what it means for a message to be full. It wasn't a casual one, a quick impression, or a push in the right direction. The full answer to every question you've been thinking about in one message. That tells you not only where you're going, but also why the way you got there looked the way it did. It takes time to put together a message with that much weight. It is put together from the things that make up your unique experience, formation, and wilderness by a wisdom that knows how your life is put together much better than you have been able to understand it yourself. In the quiet, God was writing. He was writing music. Each answer that was late added something to the whole. Every closed door led you away from a place that would have consumed you before you got to the place you were meant to be. Every relationship that ended made room in your life for new ones that are coming your way but haven't arrived yet. Every season of waiting added more depth to the message that a faster answer would not have been able to show. This is because the message is about more than just ending the wilderness. It's also about healing it. And to fully experience the healing, you have to be in the wilderness in architecture, a structure that sticks out into space horizontally without any support that can be seen below. It is called a cantilever. From the outside, it doesn't make any sense. On the other end, there is an anchor that you can't see. It looks like it's not held up by anything. The counter that is buried in the base and is connected to the arm that extends below the surface. It's only apparent that the defiance of gravity is real. There is real help. It's hidden somewhere that can't be seen. This season, your faith has been like a cantilever, sticking out into space without any support beneath it from the outside and maybe even to yourself. On those tough mornings, it looked like nothing was holding it up. But the anchor was real, buried in the faithful work that can't be seen or heard is going on in the silence. And the message that was written in that silence is when the anchor can be seen. It wasn't that there was no sound. The weight of the silence was there. The message it brought is now ready. I want you to hold on to something before the next truth hits. The question they've been working on for years has been led by a neurologist in New York City. Why does it get harder to get to the clarity that chosen ones talk about in earlier seasons? That clarity of direct reception, of working in what some call flow and others call anointing. Is there a way to get it back? They found something. Something so simple that it sounds too easy. Before this message ends, I'll tell you everything about it. But hold on to this one question for now. What if the fact that you have trouble receiving that there seems to be static between you and what God is sending wasn't even a spiritual problem? What if something so important was taken away from you that the answer isn't more spiritual practice but a restoration? Hold on to that before this message ends. It will become important. This is the second truth that the last message brings. During this season, every question you've asked has been about growth, never about failure. The difference between these two things changes how a chosen one interacts with their own doubt. Because the story that doubt is a sign of spiritual failure and questioning is a sign of weakness says that someone who comes with questions is somehow less ready to receive what's there than someone who hid their questions. Esther asked that story is one of the worst misunderstandings a person can carry through a wilderness season. She asked Mordecai a question that was so full of fear that it has never been erased from history. She did this before she went into the throne room and became the brave woman that millions of people have read about for thousands of years. Without a doubt, what she said did not come from a woman. These were the words of a woman who had thought about what it would cost, what she was afraid of, and the real chance that the worst would happen before going ahead with her plan. And the answer she got did not tell her she was wrong for having doubts. It was a bigger part of the calling. It's possible that you came to the kingdom just for this moment. During this season, your questions have not shown that you don't have enough faith. They have shown that they know how important what they are being called to is and have honestly thought about the cost. They have not faith certainty that they don't feel but have instead offered what they do have to the altar of the invisible, and the invisible has accepted it not unwillingly with the pride of a father seeing his child. Choose to stay when staying is the hardest thing that can be done. Someone can only have a certain kind of faith after having a lot of doubts. It's not faith from someone who has never had doubts. The faith of someone who kept coming back even though they didn't believe everything. That faith isn't less strong. That kind of faith is the kind that can accept what can't be accepted. That can do what all the unquestioning faith in the world couldn't do because it has been tested and held at every level. You kept. It wasn't by accident that you lost what you did this season. Loss is real and the grief over it should be respected before it is changed. You lost things and relationships that were important to you that you thought would last through the season but did not. You no longer feel sure about your path. Instead, you feel something more honest and uncomfortable. A sense of stability in the known that was slowly broken down by the wilderness. Things get lost in the wilderness. That doesn't mean the design didn't work right. That is the plan. People who built their calling around what other people could confirm, who measured progress by what was visible to the public, and who needed to see proof of visible fruit before trusting the root they couldn't see are the ones who need to do this. That show couldn't go on to the next season. Not because it was bad, but because someone else had it. And identities that are borrowed can't hold the weight of what God has made for the real one. It also takes away the comfort of your old self. Understanding the one that you built when things were easier and felt like solid ground. When you lose your identity in the wilderness, you might want to quickly rebuild it to take on the next closest identity because being without one feels unbearable. But some of you didn't give in to that urge. You let the breakup happen and stayed in the confusion enough to figure out that it was going in a certain direction. The shape of who you really are was revealed after the wilderness stripped away everything other than you. The real shape, not the performed version or the accommodated version. God made the first one before people could add their own thoughts to it. You came out of the wilderness with less chosen one. The important thing is what was left over after the stripping. The third truth in the message changes the way you think about all the other truths. You were not put in this season. In it, you were placed. There is a big difference between those two words that lets you know everything I want you to know. Being placed means passively getting there. The events that led to you being here are unrelated to the main purpose of your visit. Positioning means something completely different. It means that the place where you are in life right now, the stresses you are feeling and the mix of gifts you gained in the wilderness and wounds that made you more compassionate than you would have been without them. Everything is planned. Everything is set up. The whole thing works. Keep Esther in mind as you read this. The palace wasn't her choice. She was picked by the palace. And for a long time, the palace seemed like nothing more than a nice place to stay. She wasn't with her family and was stuck in a system that wasn't made for her. From the inside, she couldn't tell what the placement was for. She could have built a strong theology of unanswered prayer around the experience of being picked, seemingly praised, and then seemingly left behind in a close-by position where she had no control. But Esther couldn't settle down. Some part of her was still open to a bigger story. even though she couldn't read the bigger story from inside it. When Morai asked her the question that would change everything, she wasn't surprised by how heavy it was because she had been ready for years in the palace, but didn't know what it was for this particular occasion, for this season, not because of it. Inside the wilderness, not after it. The hallway you've been in is not the space between your dreams and real life. The corridor is where your assignment is. Finally, the door that hasn't opened yet because the time hasn't come for it, too. It's not because you couldn't find the right key. You have been in the palace, chosen one, and you stay there every day. Staying true to who you are in a place that could have changed you into something less important. All of those days were spent getting ready for something. And that something isn't coming. It's right here. But this is what stands between someone who has been chosen to receive and actually receiving. That's not doubt. It's the memory of believing but not getting. People who have been chosen for a long time sometimes start to doubt in a certain way. It has learned how to look like wisdom. It says things like, I'm not being negative. I am being honest. I've been through enough cycles to know that getting too excited about something new is never a good idea. I'm guarding something inside me that can't handle another round of believing and then being quiet. And not one of those things is false. It comes from having taken many risks in the hopes of something better only to pay the price every time the landing did not go as planned. The protective skepticism is not a flaw in your character. It's a scar. It also makes scars to protect her tissue from getting worse. But there's something about scars. They really work. And the same thing that makes them protective also makes them limiting. When a heart has protected its hope enough to stop more pain, it has also protected itself enough to stop more receiving. Because the message wasn't made to get through armor. The point of the message was to land in a place of real open receiving. That's right. Real open receiving needs the weakness that the protective layer was made to stop. This is something God knows about you. The message wasn't written for someone who has never been hurt by hope. It was written for someone just like you. Someone who is still here but has been hurt by hope. Someone is still ready to try being open one more time as an experiment. Not because being open and vulnerable feels good, but because you know that receiving is the only way to receive. There was a need for that willingness and you gave it to them. That's where you might think the message ends. That those three truths are all that God has to say to you. They would be more than enough to change the way the next part of your life goes. That's not the end of the message, though, because those three truths don't cover everything. They're pointing at something, but haven't said what it is yet. Something about how hard it is to receive itself in particular. If the positioning is real, the formation is finished and the message is ready, then why does it still feel hard to receive? How come the clarity that should come with this moment feels like something you have to reach for instead of something that reaches back? Why does prayer that should feel direct sometimes feel like it is going through things that are in the way? The answer has nothing to do with God. This kind of language is deeper than the spiritual language we usually use in these situations. Something was taken away from the tool that God gave you to receive, create, discern, and use everything He put inside you. And the last and deepest truth in this message is about what was taken. Things that were taken have names and they can be brought back. Follow me. We're almost there. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Koi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself. Jesus says this is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Where is the mind that God gave you? Your faith, your calling, or your ability to be spiritually sensitive are not what make you spiritually sensitive. What makes them work is the way God built the human mind. As a child, it was running at very high levels. But since then, it's only been running at a small part of its original capacity. The thing that wasn't taken away suddenly or dramatically, but slowly and methodically by the weight of a world that didn't know what it was pulling against you. Most people never come across certain types of research because they are right on the edge of being scientific and religious. And neither has been willing to fully claim it. The research was so important that it won the Nobel Prize in 1981. Dr. Roger Sperry was a scientist who spent his whole life studying the structure of the human brain. He found something that was written about in scientific journals for decades before most people could understand it. Through his research, he showed that the two sides of the brain are meant to work together. And when they do, when both sides are talking at full speed, something amazing happens. Not in a metaphorical, measurable or repeatable way extraordinary. In a process called whole brain activation, the brain works. The system is full of creativity. As intuition gets stronger, it can almost act like a prophecy. Problems go away that the half-active mind couldn't get to. And the link to something beyond the ordinary. The link that spiritual people know as the spirit moving through things becomes immediate and clear in a way that it hasn't been since you were a child. Steve Jobs was in this state because he planned out and built the whole architecture of a technology ecosystem in his mind. They measured it in Nikola Tesla. By the way, he solved problems that humans should have been unable to handle in builders, artists, and mystics who worked at levels that people at the time couldn't understand. And the things they kept finding were not supernatural skills in the usual sense. It used up the whole brain. God made both hemispheres work together, which is how they should be as kids. 98 out of every 100 kids test at the creative genius level. For kids, the brain is always in a state called whole brain activation. The hemispheres can talk to each other. It comes straight from the gut. The child does not have to use their creativity. It's just how minds naturally are when they haven't been split up yet. Unless you change into little children, you will not enter the kingdom. Matthew 18 verse 3 says it's not just a metaphor for innocence. It talks about a mental state. The state that God intended for the human mind to be in. The state where receiving doesn't feel like work and is just natural. Something has changed by the time a person is an adult. Everything that happened to you, the way you were taught in school that focused on the left hemisphere more than the right. The constant stress that broke down communication between the hemispheres, the processed foods that made it hard to sleep, and the way your attention was constantly split up. Everything worked against the synchronization that was your birthright. And by the time most people are adults, less than 1 in 1,000 can still access the full brain activation state. It wasn't always this heavy in your mind. It wasn't always this hard to say the prayer. It wasn't always this hard to receive. There is no spiritual gap between you and what God is sending you. It has to do with nerves and what was taken away from you. At the neural level, the synchronization of both hemispheres can be brought back. This is the state you were born in and the world that was deliberately hidden from you. And that's the last word the message says. Chosen one. There was more than just the knowledge that the silence was composing. The questioning was shaping and the positioning was planned. There was also the knowledge that the world blocked the tool God gave you to receive, create, and discern. And there is a clear and direct answer to the suppression. This is where everything I wrote earlier in this message comes together. Part of the silence that felt like God wasn't. There was the mind working at a fraction of its normal speed. Having trouble picking up a signal. It was meant to pick up clearly. You didn't lose a different spiritual gift that made you more clear. In earlier seasons, it was the natural way for brain to work when it was working together better. And as the years went by and the world put in place its system of suppression, it got harder to receive. Not because God took a step back, but because the antenna was getting worse. You weren't losing faith. You were just not being able to receive as much. And those are very different things. You can grow your faith by being disciplined and making the choice to go back. Reception capacity is a physiological fact that needs to be restored physiologically. While the instrument was being suppressed, the God who made it also restored it. And the restoration is not as far away as it seemed. That being said, I have something to tell you before this message ends. Not because it's a break, but because it's a direct continuation of what I just told you. And leaving it out would be like leaving out something important that we've been talking about. What I'm about to say might not be appropriate for all viewers. A lot of people will hear it and forget about it. They will keep looking for spiritual answers to a problem that has a physical aspect to it, which will lead to the same brain fog and interference in the receiving. You're not most people, though you're still here. You stopped when you heard the word stop. And what I'm about to say is just for that person. There's a nurse from California who is there. Her account of her life in the years before she found out what I'm going to call life. She wasn't living this life. It was happening to her. She was surviving it as an object of its events instead of a subject of them. She had tried everything in the area where spirituality and science met, such as meditation, methods for manifesting, and audio tracks on streaming services that said they would wake up her brain. There was nothing that made it clear. Nothing brought back the receiving. After hearing what I'm about to say, the weight she had been carrying for years disappeared within 10 days. What she said. She said that her life was enchanted, not because she had worked hard for years, but because something that had been pushed down came back to her in 10 days. Let me now tell you how that was possible. In 1981, Dr. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize for showing that the brain's two halves can work together. After that, a neurosurgeon in New York City named Dr. Daniel Barron looked at that science and asked one question for 20 years. Could the process be opened up to everyone? Not for people who can pay hundreds of dollars an hour for neurofeedback sessions in person. If you were rich, you could buy machines for 7 tiles neuron dozen that do the same thing in a clinical setting because this person was born with this ability. The world took it away from them and they deserve to have it back. What Dr. Barron and his team made is a targeted 8-minute sound sequence. The name for it is the Genius Switch. It's not a brainwave track. It's not an app for meditation. You're not already unhappy with binaural beats or any other type of audio product. The goal of neural sync technology is to get both sides of your brain to work together. 8 minutes with headphones on, eyes closed, and the reconnection of what was always yours. This is the whole brain activation that won Dr. Roger Sperry the Nobel Prize. If you have tried brainwave tracks before and found that they were missing something, Dr. de Baron tells you exactly why brain waves only show one side of the story. Brainwave research isn't being used by most top researchers anymore because it wasn't getting to the heart of the matter. Not just one wave in one area is what his team is after. Both hemispheres of the brain working together. The whole brain, the way God built it, the state you were in when you were 8 years old that the world tried to hide from you. His co-workers figured out how much what he built was worth and said it would be worth a lot more than 500. A few people pay $300 an hour for neurofeedback sessions that take place in person. A DAL 7000 home device that does the same thing. Syncs up the two hemispheres. This was given away by Dr. Baron for $49, which is more than 40% less than what it was worth. Additionally, those who made it through this whole message can get an extra 10 on the page where his team made it available today. That means the access point costs $39. Now for $39 you get the 8-in-it sequence plus 4 extras that Dr. Baron put together to support. What it starts a guided visualization from one of the best creators on the Calm app, a grocery guide that lists 10 common foods that cause brain fog and shortcuts that save you over $100 a month at the big stores. A book about the science of receiving that is more than 100 years old and is thought to be where most of the ideas in modern manifestation science came from. And a printed list of the 5 most important habits for the life you want to live. All of it comes with a 100% money-back guarantee and you can listen to it as many times as you want. Before you look for this anywhere else, you should know this. Major streaming services have audio tracks with language. That sounds like what I just said. Neural synchronization and activation of the whole brain. The tracks were looked at by Dr. Baron and his team. Most of them didn't have any neural sync technology built in at all. They used the language to get clicks, not because it was important to science. The actual sequence, the one based on the Nobel Prize research, can only be seen by his team. They have put a link in the description that takes you to where you can get it. That link will be there for you. When you are ready, if your spirit tells you that this is a part of what restoration looks like for you, I think it is for some of you. There is no equipment needed other than headphones. It only takes 8 minutes and reconnects your whole brain to the way God designed it to work. Before I say the last words, I want you to do something real. Take a deep breath. It's not the shallow one that's become the norm. Take a real breath. The kind that brings you peace of mind deep inside past the stress in your chest. Look around you where you were sitting while you listened. The fact that you have been here for a long time, and remember that staying did not mean you were passive. It asked you to do something. That choice is important. It looks like a person who is ready to receive. Imagine going to a room. Don't plan it. Just let it happen. It is peaceful and big in a way that only places inside us can be big without having physical dimensions. Even light fills it, leaving no shadow. And in the middle of that room, standing still and at ease, is a version of you. Not the one that has been carrying the weight of this season. Not the one that has been dealing with the doubt, the delay, and the cost of being in the wilderness over time. Below all of that is the version that God saw when he wrote the message. This version is not lessened by the season, but has been strengthened by it. What are they holding? It's the wisdom that comes from being confused long enough to hear through it, and the compassion that comes from having been hurt deeply enough to see it in others. The faith that stood up to being questioned and came out on the other side strong in a way that faith that has never been tested can never be. That person is not your future self. They are neither a prediction nor an aim. They show you the real you. Underneath what the season has put on top of you. This clear view of them right now is not my imagination. It's recognition. Your spirit is aware of what has been built in the quiet through the arrangement, placement, and composition of a message that was always meant for this person. Let that feeling of recognition sink into your whole body, not just your mind. From your head to the bottom of your feet. True love is always real when it finds the person it was meant for. Let it be real in that way. I want to tell you who you are right now, not who you hope to be. There is no outside source that gives you supernatural vision. You are a seer because you have been paying attention for a long time and at a deep enough level to develop the ability to see beneath the surface of things, to read what is underneath what is being presented, and to sense the shape of what is forming before it has taken its final form. The years we had to wait were not wasted. Those were the years when you learned to see. And people who haven't been where you've been can't see what you see now. You have a voice. You speak a language that was made for people who can't yet explain their own experiences. There is a difference between how words land when you speak from a performance and when you speak from a place where you are aware of how you look. They say things that other words can't. They give names to things that didn't have names before. Not by chance. That's not how you are. That's what assignment means. The voice wasn't given the words to speak on its own. These people were given it so that they could hear it. Of course, you break cycles. You're the end of something. There is a pattern in your family, your history, and the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation about what is possible for someone from your background. That pattern doesn't have to go on after you. The cycle breaker doesn't break down old habits by directly opposing them. They take them apart by changing into someone who can't be read by the old pattern. Someone who is raised to a level where the generational wound can't reach them. And the people who come after you are already benefiting from the breaking that has been happening in you during this time. You've been calling a delay. Also, I want to give you permission before the holy place. Not depending on, not earned, present. You can grow out of things you've grown out of. You can let go of relationships that the wilderness showed you were made for a different version of yourself. You can keep what God is building in you safe even from people who knew you before the building started but don't understand the plan. You can say no to things that used to get an automatic yes from you. Even if that yes was out of fear instead of a real calling. You can walk at the speed that makes your assignment, not the speed that makes everyone else feel comfortable. Also, you don't need to say sorry for becoming the person you were always meant to be. I want to give you a word from the original Hebrew because it changes the whole plot of what we have been talking about. It's called shalom. It shows up in the Bible in places where most English translations say restore, pay, or make whole. And most people who read it pass it without even realizing it. Peace doesn't mean putting something back the way it was or taking something back in the same way it was taken. That's not peace. Being made whole in a way that goes beyond what was before is what shalom means. It means to be paid back not in kind but with interest. The original word makes you think of a court ruling in your favor and telling the person who stole from you to pay you a lot of money to give it back. Not the 100 that was taken. The court gives 500 because the law of shalom doesn't just pay back. It goes above and beyond. What did this season take away from you? The clarity, direct reception, and activation of your whole brain that let you do everything God made you to do. It won't be returned in the exact amount that was taken but in a larger amount, because shalom doesn't mean back to the beginning. Shalom means moving past it. God doesn't just fix things. Chosen one. He gives more than he takes. And you are standing on the edge of that shalom. The words are now getting slower. At the end of a message like this, there is a holy spot where the teaching stops and the declaration starts. What was said over the mind is now being said over the spirit. Dear Father, we come to this place with the specific people who stopped, who really paid attention, who chose to be here in a world that asked them to do everything all day. I want to honor that choice more than anything else, because you do. You can see everyone who made it to this point, and you know how much it cost them to stay still long enough to receive. See the weight they came in with, the questions that hadn't been answered for longer than their faith was meant to hold them up. They put off their hope until it turned into an H. They can deal with instead of a wound they still think can heal. You can see all of that, and none of it makes you sad. You are God, and you wrote this message just for this person. The one who waited and stayed. Now I'm letting go of everything that was made in the wild that doesn't belong in the next season. Every identity I borrowed instead of being given. Every expectation I built on someone else's picture of my life. And every form of faith that was based on performing certainty. I didn't feel every protective layer that formed to keep me from being let down. And that is now keeping me from receiving every story about what is possible for someone like me that was made before I knew who that person is. I let it go. I let it go. It has nothing to do with what comes next. I declare what does belong now that I have let go of what doesn't belong. I was born into the truth that I am a chosen one, not something I earned. Being in the wilderness has confirmed this for me. It was meant for me to be here at this time. At this point, at this breakthrough that is already here, what I see is real because I am a seer. I have a voice, and what I have to say is important. I break cycles, and what ends with me is good for everyone who comes after me. I'm not behind. I have not been forgotten. There is no way around the promise for me. The promise was made to me. And I get the last message, the whole thing. Knowing that the silence was writing, knowing that the questioning was helping to shape them, the knowledge that the placement was planned. I know that what was taken from me has a solution, and I can reach it. All of it goes into the deepest part of me. The part that was there before anyone else could say anything about it. That's where God speaks directly. When He has something to say that I can't understand through what I think I know, let it hit the ground. Seal it up. Let it become real in my bones, in my body, right down to the cells. You are about to enter your divine future. But remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary where we discuss the Word daily and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give and heaven will open over you" on this platform. Every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall. Share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit our community now. Join the family and see your heavens open. Don't forget Chosen One. The smart switch isn't a trick. It's not a trick. It's an 8-minute audio file that does what your brain did on its own when you were a kid. What Dr. Barron built is how you get back to feeling like you were meant for more than this. When your spirit says ready, click on the link in the description. It's done. Yes. If a word in this message wound up somewhere that other words haven't been in a while, type the word sealed in the comments right now. Not for metrics of engagement, for your own record, as the statement of someone who got a message meant for them and chose to acknowledge it. Sealed means that it has been sent. If it's sealed, it's yours. Sealed means that the silence that made it found the person it was written for. Please press the like button once more before leaving this area. Not because there are a lot of them, but because someone is going through exactly what you heard, and the message gets to them through the sign you send that says, "This is real." Let someone you've never met like something and agree with them. If this message got to you at the right time, there are more like it coming for your next season. Keep in touch so they can find you quickly. Anyone who has been unusually quiet lately, someone who has been in a hallway they can't explain to the people around them, or someone who holds on to their faith at a cost most people in their life don't understand, should read this and share it with that person. You might be the way that their last message gets to them. Not as a chance, but as a calling, chosen one. You came here with something that you have been carrying by yourself for longer than it was appropriate. You stayed through the whole message, not because it was easy, but because you knew that this was the time when you needed to be there. The time of year is changing. The message has been sent. You, on the other hand, have everything you need to move on to the next thing. The wilderness took away and gave you back. And you have answered every question honestly and stayed long enough that it cost more to leave than to stay. Follow what was said not as a feeling that needs to be controlled, but as something that you need to live. You decide what comes next. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment. A place where divine abundance is not just a hope but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step. Your abundance awaits.